Hello and welcome to Charmel's channel. Today we will be discussing the I-134 Declaration of Financial Support. So this document actually updated on, what was it? March? About March. Actually, no, it was middle of May. That's what it was. So this document updated on the middle of May. This is the new form. This one expires in, what is that, October 31st, 2022 this year. But we'll jump into it. We'll get started with it right away. So for a lot of people, you will see that starting with Part 1, Section 1, we go with, you will either check, yes, you're filling this out for yourself. So if you're the beneficiary and you're filling this out for yourself, then you'll click myself as the beneficiary. Or if you're being sponsored, or you have, say, your fiance is filling out for you because he will be the one financially supporting you whenever you come to the US, then you will want to click the another individual who is the beneficiary. Starting with basic information from the beginning, the beneficiary will fill out their family name, their given name, and their middle name. I know with a lot of Filipinos, their middle name is their family name before they were married or after they were married. So, you'll just fill it out, and that means you'll also fill out any other names you were using. Say you were previously married beforehand, you got divorced, but you still use your married name, then you'll either use your name that you got at birth, if it changed, or any other names that you've used in the past on official documents, or that is used and known use, such as nicknames. Next, you fill out your date of birth, your gender, your alien registration number if you have one. You'll fill out your city where you live. So this is just basic information. It's pretty quick, pretty simple. Fill out your passport number and the country in which your passport was issued and when it will expire. Your marital status, so whether you're single, never married, you're widowed, legally separated, so on and so forth. Then you'll come down, you'll fill out your mailing address. So like, where you're currently getting your mail at. So this is kind of where it separates a little bit. As the beneficiary, if your mailing address is not the same as your physical address, so if you do not receive mail where you live and stay, then you need to click no. And if you click no, then you also need to fill out your physical address, the place which is the address of your actual home. After you fill all this out, come down. This is kind of a new segment in this form as well. The beneficiary's anticipated length of stay. So, it asks from a start date so this would be the day that you actually step into the United States. A lot of people aren't going to know this day exactly. That's why it says anticipated. So you don't have to get exactly on the day. So if you have a plan, say, all right, well, I'm going to schedule a trip in May, then just pick a day sometime in May. Maybe the 15th of May to hit the middle of May. Sometimes it's impossible to anticipate this day exactly. So you just want to try and get as close as possible to the day that you're going to be in the United States. Next will be the day that you plan to leave. If you do not plan to leave, say you're coming on a K-1 visa and then you plan on getting married, and after you get married, you plan on changing to a green card, then you would want to put no end date because you do not plan on leaving the United States. You just plan on staying here and just changing your status. But if you do have a day that you plan on leaving, then you need to put that down and what day that would be. Next, we get to the beneficiary's financial information. So, as it says, provide information about the beneficiary's income and assets. If you need additional space to complete any item number in this section, use the space provided in Part 8, which pretty much all of these documents have a Part 8. Or even further on, and it's a spot that has a bunch of sections where you can put additional information, say you need to write something in, explain something. So if that's the case for you guys, you can always do that. But provide all of the information requested in the table below about the beneficiary, all of the beneficiary's dependents, and any other individuals the beneficiary financially supports. Do not include any individual named in Part 3. So when it mentions this, it says Part 3. This is kind of important. So if you're not filling out this form for yourself and somebody else is filling this form out for you, or you are filling this out for someone else, you are the sponsor, the person supporting the beneficiary, I would suggest coming down to Part 3 and filling out Part 3 before you ever fill out Part 2. So you want to come down here, you want to put in all the information for the person that is financially supporting the beneficiary. So this doesn't have to be the fiance. It could be an aunt, the fiance. It could be a brother living in the United States. It could be anybody, really. It's somebody who is providing the financial support for the beneficiary. So we come down here, just like the beneficiary, we fill out all the sponsors' information. You know, I just put in just random names and stuff. Same thing from the above. They have additional names that they have used in the past or nicknames. They need to fill all that information out as well. Their current mailing address. And just the same, if their current mailing address is not the same as their physical address, then they need to click no and then put in their physical address as well. It asks for their date of birth, where they're living, alien registration or USCIS online account numbers if they have any. The relationship, this is kind of important, the relationship to the beneficiary. So whether it's their fiance, their brother, whatever ties them to the beneficiary. And then come down here, current immigration status, provide documentation as provided in the instructions. So if they're a U.S. citizen, then they just need to provide documentation proving that they are a U.S. citizen or U.S. national. So that could be anything from birth certificate to a U.S. passport, a U.S. state ID, anything of the sort, social security number, anything of the sort, which will prove that they are a U.S. citizen. Going further down, it starts asking for employment information. So when it comes down here, whether they're employed, part-time, seasonal, full-time, unemployed or non-employed, retired, or some form of other, maybe they have a side hustle, then they would click other, and then they have to explain it. If they are currently employed, then they need to come down here, click this box, and then they need to put the title of their position. So let's say, just to throw something out, they're a sales assistant for J&J. Then they need to come down here and they need to put sales assistant and then put the name of the employer. So they put J&J. If they're self-employed, then they would click that they are self-employed and as what, whether it's a retail vendor or so on and so forth. Put the employer's address. I don't have none of that down here because the form I'm using won't let me use this. If you actually go to the instructions of the I-134 form, there's actually a PDF, a free PDF download in there. You can click it, and as a PDF viewer and writer, you can go in there and you can use it. It's absolutely free. I'm not using that one on this computer, but you can click in it. It is in the I-134's instructions. Coming further down, this is where we fill out the financial information of the sponsor or the one financially supporting them. So you'll come down here and you'll fill out the sponsor's name. If they are the one filling this out for you, then you'll fill out the sponsor's name, their date of birth. They will put self in here to represent their self. They will put the income contribution to the beneficiary annually, how much money you will be contributing to the beneficiary annually. I put $60,000 here because that's around an average salary in the U.S. And then because I'm basing this off of a fiance. If the fiance is living with you, so the beneficiary is living with the fiance, then they can claim the sponsor or the fiance's annual income as a source of income for them as well, because it'll be used to support them by living with them, providing room and board. It'd be providing food for them, electricity, so on and so forth, and some form of spending money as well. So you can claim the sponsor's annual income as a source of income for the beneficiary as well. Or if you have any dependents, then you need to place the dependents down here as well, their date of birth, how they relate to the sponsor. You do not put the fiance or the beneficiary's name down here. That is placed in section 2. It clearly says it here as well. Do not include any individual's name in part 2. So the beneficiary and all their dependents will be placed in part 2, and income that they will be supporting into the relationship of this document. But you will not put them down here in part 3. The part 3 is specifically for the sponsor, the person financially supporting them, and any dependents that they may have, which could be adding to it as well. I put if any here, but I just put the fiance and how much they have. So like say the fiance has a son that lives with them, then he'd put his son here. And if they have income that is coming into the household as well, which may be supporting the beneficiary, they put it down here as well. You'll put the total number of dependents, however many people was in this box. You'll add that up, put it down here, and then you'll add up their incomes and put it in the total income section. So we come down here and it asks, does any of the income listed above come from a legal activity? Hopefully none of it does. If it does, then you need to click yes and place it in here. But if not, then just click no. Here's a tricky question as well. Does any of the income listed above come from means tested public benefits as defined in 8 CFR 213 Alpha TAC 1? Then if you look this up, it references federally provided income of a public means, so such as welfare, food stamps, federal work programs, so on and so forth. Some form of federal aid that comes from the public. If you're not receiving any of that and none of the money that will be supporting the beneficiary is provided in that means, then you just click no. If you would like to look that up, just to be sure and double check, you can just highlight 8 CFR 23 Alpha TAC 1, just copy it and then paste it into Google, and it'll bring up the full list. If you scroll halfway down the list, it will tell you about the mean tested public benefits, and you'd be able to look that up and actually double check that if you are part of any of those. But if you're only receiving money from, say, retirement, your employment, or some form of asset such as stocks, bonds, so on and so forth, then you do not have to worry about that. You just click no. Coming down, fill out the table below regarding the assets available to you. So these assets, as you can see, vary. It's anywhere from your checking, savings, annuities, stocks, bonds, certificates, deposits, retirement of educational account, real estate holdings, or personal property. So real estate holdings and personal property are two different things now. On the old address, on the old form, they didn't really differentiate these two forms. So I actually looked into this in the instructions, and real estate holdings is any real estate that you have that you may be renting out, leasing, or possibly sell. Say you own the property and you can sell it for the full value of the property. Personal property is the property that you are, such as your car, your computer, your, let's say, what else? Say you have gold bars in a safe. You know what I mean? That's your personal property. So you'll take your personal property, and this is the net value of your personal property. So like you can count your house as your personal property, the house that you're living in as your personal property because you own that property. But you have to take the net value of that property. So the net value would be, and you actually have to prove this as well. The net value would be what your house appraises as minus how much you may owe on a mortgage. So let's say your house is worth $200,000, but you still owe $160,000 on the mortgage. Well, first you have to demonstrate the net value of that would be $40,000. So you could claim that $40,000 net value of your house, but then you have to show a document proving that you own the house, along with the appraisal rate, assigned appraisal rate. Secondly, you have to show your loan documents proving that you only owe $160,000 on this house. And then that proves that if you was to sell the house, you could get $200,000 for it, paying off your mortgage for the $160,000, giving you a net value of $40,000, which you could claim. This also means that you can claim your vehicle, but you're only allowed to claim a vehicle if it is not the only vehicle you have. So you have to prove that you have more than one vehicle and that you're not trying to claim both of them as an asset. So let's say you have personal property. This personal property, you're the owner of this personal property. So John Lee Smith owns this personal property. This is his vehicle. He has two vehicles, and this vehicle that he is trying to sell, Kelly Blue Books for $10,000. Then now they can claim $10,000 as an asset. So the reason for claiming these assets and the reason for claiming this value is because there is something called the federal poverty limit. In order to prove that you are capable of supporting someone else, there's set amounts in the federal poverty limit. If you look it up, you just type in federal poverty limit into Google. It will give you a list of what the government believes is a dollar limit that you have to be above to support however many dependents you're trying to support. So if you're just trying to support yourself and you're just trying to support the beneficiary, then it's just two people. So if I'm right, I think it's roughly around, you have to be above, you have to have an annual income above $19,000 or assets which cover the difference. So let's say your annual income is only $15,000, then you have to have assets which you are capable of selling to get above that federal poverty limit. That's what the assets stand for. So now we come down, we finish filling that out. It asks for financial responsibility of other beneficiaries. So if you have previously submitted a form I-134 on behalf of a person other than the beneficiary named in Part 2, then you click yes. You put down their information as well. If not, you click no, and then you move on. Once we get down here, you have to sign that you intend or do not intend to make specific contributions to the support of the beneficiary named in Part 2. Explain the contribution. So that once you get down here, this is where you would explain it. So let's say you're the fiance. You would put in here that you're the fiance. You'll be providing room and board. They'll be staying with you. You'll be providing food, shelter, and all the means that they need to fill out their documents or any other needs that they have. Basic living needs, such as basic living needs sustain into food, shelter, and some form of transportation. Just the basic needs that any person needs to live. So after you get past that, statement, contact information, certification, and signature of the beneficiary, only complete this section if it is in Part 1 at the very beginning. You filled out that it is it is myself as the beneficiary who is filling this form out. If it is not the beneficiary filling this form out, you'll skip this whole section. You'll skip down to Part 5. Sorry, you'll skip down to Part 5, in which case this is the financial support, the person financially supporting the beneficiary. Then you'll fill this information out. I can read, understand. It says for the beneficiary to sign here, but you don't sign here unless you are the one who filled this out. So unless the beneficiary is the one who filled this out, you skip all of Part 4. Even where it says to sign, you don't sign it. That's only if the beneficiary is filling this document out. If it's someone else filling this out, say the fiance, the petitioner, and willing and agreeing to financially support the beneficiary, then they skip to Part 5. They read all the information. I understand English, or if they have an interpreter, or if they have someone prepare this document for them, then they'll have a preparer fill it out. they'll put their information in, and then they'll come down here, and the person financially agreeing to support the beneficiary will sign here and date. Now, since we got that part filled out, we're going to move back up to part 2, which is the beneficiary's financial support. So coming back up to part 2, this is about beneficiary's financial information. So just like the sponsor's financial information, you'll do the same thing with the beneficiary, except there's 2 parts here. So you'll have Joan Riezdoa. They are the beneficiary. And then, we have their birth date. So this is the part where it differs. If they are the one that's filling this document out, then they will put self, because they will be claiming themselves as the dependent. If they are not the one filling this document out, then they will put beneficiary to title themselves as the beneficiary, or the one, whoever is filling this document out will title them as the beneficiary. And any dependents that they may have who is contributing to the beneficiary annually. So let's say they have a son. This son is contributing $1,000 to the beneficiary annually. You will not fill out the sponsor here. So if, say, you as the fiance are filling this document out for the beneficiary, and it's not the beneficiary filling this document out, you will not put your name here as a dependent or someone supporting it. You do all that in part 3. So do not include any individuals named in part 3. That's where all the financial support goes. Like, all their information goes in part 3. This is just strictly about the beneficiary. If the beneficiary is filling this out for themselves, then like I said, they will put self here, and then they will put how much they have annually or contributing annually, or any dependents which they may have who will be contributing as well, or any dependents that they have who may not be contributing. So say they have 2 sons that will be coming with them, or a son that will come with them, but they're not supporting anything at all to the actual income of them or their mother, then you'll put 0 here, because they're not putting anything in there annually. Same thing as part 3. You'll come down here, you'll put however many dependents there are listed, and then you'll put the total income of these dependents together. So 0, then you would put 0 there. Just like in part 3, does any of the beneficiaries' total income come from a legal means, such as does any of the beneficiaries' total income, including income from dependent and other individuals, contribute to the beneficiary's income, excluding any individuals named in part 3, come from an illegal activity or source, such as proceeds from illegal gambling or illegal drug sales? Hopefully, again, none of this money comes from that. But if it does, you need to put yes, and you need to put how much of it. If not, then you just put no. And again, does any of the beneficiaries' total income come from means tested public benefits as defined in 8 CFR 213 Alpha TAC 1? Then you just put no. Like I said, that's such as some form of federal funding, such as welfare, such as food stamps, such as federal work programs, or so on and so forth, in which case, if something happens, you may have to pay that back. If it does, if you answered yes, please put how much you put in there. Come down, just like in part 3, for the financial support, you'll come in here and you'll put their assets, if they have any assets, and if they do, then you just put how much that asset is. So say they have a checking account with $1,000 inside of it, then you put checking account $1,000. Come down here, you total it all up for all of the assets, and you'll just put the total amount. Come down here, and we are back at part 3. So we already described how to fill out part 3. We're just going to skip past part 3 until we get down to back to where we were. Where the financially support to the beneficiary, you sign and you date. If you had an interpreter, you have them fill out their information. They have to sign and date as well. They put their mailing address, their contact information, and then they will sign as well. Or if you had someone prepare this document for you. So the preparer is not the same thing as the person who's filling this out to financially support them. Then we're two different people. As it says in Part 7, contact information, declaration, signature of the person preparing this declaration, if other than the individual agreeing to financially support the beneficiary. So say you're the fiance, you're filling this out for the beneficiary, then you do not fill out this part. You fill out the above part as the financial support to the beneficiary. But if you did, say you had a lawyer and they filled this document out for you, then you have them fill out all this information and they would sign it as well. So if at any point throughout this you had places where you had to fill out more information than the space that you had provided, then all you do is you come down here to Part 8, you'll fill out your name, you'll fill out your alien number, and then you will put the page number, part number, and item number. So the page number is listed at the bottom right of each page. The part number is such and such here, say Part 7. And then the item number is the smaller case number that you see throughout it. So up here, we see Part 6. And then say you didn't have enough space for your street number and name, then you would put page 10, Part 6, item number 3, and then you would fill that out in Part 8 as a continuation onto that because you needed more space or there was something else you needed to fill out and explain. You have plenty of space to fill all this out. If at any point you need more space than what is provided in Part 8, you can actually print off multiple sheets of Part 8 and just add them to the document as well and just carry on with it. So that is how you fill out the new I-134 document. I hope that's helpful. Any questions, concerns, or any information that could be updated on here, please fill it out in the comments below. And thank you. I hope that's helpful. Bye.
Bye.